The format of this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcements, a coffee break and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker tonight is Alan.
Give it up for Alan. Let's go home. We can watch TV now, huh? My name's Alan. I'm an alcoholic. How are you guys? Happy Saturday. It's a privilege and an honor to be asked to share at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm glad I asked myself and that you allowed me to. I'm supposed to share in a general way, and you have to give me 5, huh, Ryan? Yeah. Is there time? Me too. So I'm supposed to share in a general way what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. And I tell you, I grew up panhandling for cigarette money and wine money, hitchhiking to San Francisco. So I was a child of the 60s. I loved sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That was our motto. That's what we did. I don't know about you guys. I can only tell you my personal experience. Coming to Alcoholics Anonymous was most difficult for me to ask for help. I don't know how that experience is for you, but I like to share that experience with you. So if you guys would accompany me and oblige me, I'd like you to ask the person sitting to your left or your right, can I borrow a dime? Hey, do you mind if I borrow a dime? I want you to panhandle a little bit. Please ask the person, can I borrow a dime? Or nowadays, a buck, you know. Can I borrow a buck? Pretty easily done, isn't it? Comes right off my tongue like, I could do that blindfolded. I'd like you to ask that same person, will you help save my life today? Not so easy experience, is it? That's what this is for me. I'm the type of alcoholic, just like you probably, that suffers from a deadly disease. They told me when I came in here that I will either get sober, recover, go to jail, end up in an institution, or die. We were having dinner earlier. I remember as a teenager, probably in your age, that I would end up in Yosemite on the rocking chair in a beautiful veranda in the village there, just rocking back and forth, lost my brains, probably drooling, and that was going to be the end of my life. And boy, was I wrong, But that's where I thought drugs and alcohol were going to take me, because I loved doing it and I couldn't stop no matter what. And I had many good reasons. And I thought a lot about myself. I might have not been much to think about, but it's all that I thought of. And to tell you a little bit, I come from Los Angeles. I'm born and raised. I'm a native here. I was born at a very early age. I'm a single child. Just don't tell my sister that. And I got kicked out of school the first day of kindergarten. My brother and I apparently couldn't, learn to walk to school like gentlemen, so they asked us to come back the very next day. By 3rd grade, they had to separate us from school. And I'm only telling you this because I must have been a very difficult child to raise, I'm not wired like normal, and I don't know what normal people are and how they behave. I have ideas, I've seen them, I've met them, I've read about them, but I'm not wired that way. I got in trouble all my life in school. I never liked it. I think because my older sister used to make me play school. And that's, I never and if I didn't play with her, she would beat me up. So that's probably one of the influences. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm an alcoholic because I'm an alcoholic. I have a part of me, the way that I'm wired, that makes me different than other people. I was probably an alcoholic just waiting to use some means of alcohol or drugs. My life fell apart at age 29. I thought I had already had some successes, financial successes. I have had a failure in my marriage. I was a failure to my son, to my wife, to my girlfriend. And in recovery, when I came here on June 14th, 1983, I ended up in a little house in Monterey, and the guy next to me had the jitters and shook himself out of the bed, cracked his head open, and thank you, Ryan, and I never saw him again. But I woke up in a recovery home, and I was scared shitless. I didn't want to open my mouth because I didn't want to tell them how stupid I am and what I was doing there, and I didn't want them to kick me out. And when I came out of that place called Beacon House in Pacific Grove, I went to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and nobody had sent me the memo of what this is and how it works, I saw ladies that were knitting, and I thought if I stay long enough, I will get some knitting needles. I liked to crochet as a little boy in camp. I thought I can knit. I would like to learn to do that. I was wrong there again. I've had a lot of failures in this program of recovery, but what I haven't had is I haven't lost my recovery and my sobriety. Nobody can take it away from me or you. The guy that ran that house, he told me, just take a look around. 1 out of 3 of you will have long-term recovery. And I had asked those guys, I said, I hope you stay well and take good care of yourself, because there was no other place for me at that point in my life. And today, 40-something years later, there's no other place for me but into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and into the fellowship that has given me and supported me and has loved me and has laughed with me, sometimes at me, for the last 41 years. It's been an honor to be part of this meeting. I call this my home group. To watch what you have done in your lives and to see how you have recovered has been a bright spot in my life. Where's my telephone? They told me, a friend promised when these things were done, that I would enter upon a relationship with my Creator, that I would enter and have the elements of a way of living that answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness and honesty and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant the destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn all things into the Father of light, who presides over all of us. That's what they told me then, and I'm here to tell you that that's the evidence I carry with me for the last 41 years of my recovery. I hope God continues to bless you with recovery, one day at a time, until the day we don't breathe anymore. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Alan.
Nobody was drinking, I saw.
Thanks, Alan. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Now, our main speaker will share his or her experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Honey from Costa Mesa.
My name is Honey. I'm an alcoholic. I have a lot of disconnected thoughts at the moment I want to share with you before I tell you where I come from. When I was new and I was young and I was cute, I went to, most of my meetings were at the Newport Club, and they got scattered like this, except they had some real moth-eaten eaten couches. There were like 4 of them. And I thought, ooh, nobody's going to want to sit there. It was a 7 a.m. meeting, and they'd come in, and there'd be this push, and everybody, and by 7:03, those moldy couches were full. And I thought, what is that? There's plenty of seats. What is that? So I kind of tracked it for about a month and realized that the people that were really in that meeting were in those moldy chairs. So I chased that for about a month and a half until I got my spot. Of course, I had to come early to get in those chairs. I have no idea why I thought about that. It's rank before principles. I'm Honey. I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is April 1st, 1993. I'm an April Fool. And I just have a lot of things I want to tell you before I tell you where I'm from. I want to talk to you about the last hospital I was in. I was it's Saturday night, Anaheim speakers meeting, and I start sliding down the podium, and I'm talking about the bitter morass of self-pity, and then everybody's going, how do you call 911? And I had brand new shoes on that night. Paramedics came and they started taking my clothes off, which was kind of okay, but I said, leave my shoes alone. And I wanted them to, I was afraid my friends wouldn't come because they were going to Anaheim, that old hospital where your paint is peeling. And I said, no, we have to go to Hoag, my friends won't come to Anaheim. I've always been counting on how many friends I had. I started with 0. But anyway, I'm there, and when I get to the hospital, they rush me in, and my chief surgeon has on a turban, and we get through whatever we get through. You know how that goes. And next thing I know, he's coming in my room, and when it's over, and I'm expecting this big medical explanation, with the X6 and all that stuff. And he says, we're here to help you. And I said, oh. I think that's going to be my line, I'm thinking. And then he comes back later in the afternoon, and he says, well, do you have anything to say? I said, well, we haven't really talked about, where I am and where I am in this process. And he says, last night I saved your life. I said, oh, I want to use that one, too. I like to use that one, too. But while I'm there, I said to him, because I was in this little room, and he said, I said, am I going to die? And he said, no. And I said, well, are my friends here? He said, oh, yeah, they're here. They're here. There's 50 of them on this floor. And I thought, this is Alcoholics Anonymous. We are not alone. We are here together. We're here together. And I guess if there's a message I want to give you tonight somehow when I talk to you, is I'm so grateful to God and Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm not alone. That wherever I've been and wherever I'm going, I know that you're going to be with me, and I certainly didn't think that when I got here, Before that, I was born I'm from nothing and nowhere in East Texas. I look at these porta potties, and that was a step up from where I live. Which I don't have a problem with that. I would have been trailer trash, but we didn't have a trailer. And my mom was a fall down drunk, and every time she got up, there was another man I didn't know. And my dad supplied the alcohol. He was a bootlegger in Dry County. Some of you know what that means. And he also was pretty good at floating crap games. And one night he won this honky-tonk in Dallas. Now I'm 5-6 years old. My brother's not much younger. We're traveling on the gravel road, and one thing we know is it's going to be a long night. And as we go up and finally stop, a little time goes by, and my mother gets in the car. This guy, another guy I didn't know, gets in the car, and there's a gun, and there's a shot, and he's dead. And that's all I remember. Can't give you any more details about that, except that very shortly after that, I met in a convent in St. Michael's in Dallas, and it's run by nuns. In fact, I thought about being a nun, but it passed. And they didn't mistreat me, and I'm going to tell you over and over again how smart I am. Because no matter what class I was in, whatever I was learning, I was just really smart. And they just kept moving me. And I really didn't have any visitors. But by the time I was 12, this man came to get me and tell me I was done. And he took me over to South Park High School, and I saw boys for the first time. I said, life is good. And two of them invited me to the same dance on Friday night, and I said yes to both of them. And that was going to be a pattern in my life. By the time I was 15, I'd already graduated. My mother had a sister who'd picked cotton as a little girl, and she'd made a life for herself. And she came to me and she said, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know how to do anything. I only know how to go to school. I hadn't even had a drink yet. I'd only know how to go to school. So she took me over to the University of Texas, and they enrolled me immediately. And I lived in the dorms. I loved the bunk beds. And the guys sang to us out on the balcony. One night, one of the guys, I don't think he stole this car, but he got this car, and he said, we're going to go and hear James Brown. Okay, well, at the time, Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin were my higher powers. I said, well, okay, let's go. And I was all of 16 because that was the legal drinking age in Louisiana. So we went across the bridge in Louisiana, and I had my first drink. And it was, I don't know, green, yellow, red. It was a little sinister. And I drank it, and I fell in love. I fell in love on the spot. It was a love affair that was to last a long time. It didn't matter that I was throwing up. It did matter that I couldn't stay because I had a ride and I had to go back. I would have stayed. But I come back. By the time I'm 18, I'm graduating from university. I had my first marriage proposal. He asked me, and I said yes. It's just that quick. And he was a big deal at Rice University, and I had done very well at the University of Texas. And we were married in the chapel, and both of us went to NASA. And it was in Houston, if you remember the Manned Spacecraft Center, but it was small and nobody believed what they were going to do. We were in the unbelievable crowd. But he was he had a top secret clearance because he was on the Apollo project, and I had just a regular clearance. I was low level over there. And so he's gone to Vandenberg all the time, and I'm lonely. And pretty soon I'm not lonely anymore. And, I don't have the guilt, remorse, and shame until a Tuesday night. He comes home early. He sees something he should never have had to see. And I don't know how much of a bag I packed, but I went to the airport and I flew out here. And I got off on 405. I saw the 405 freeway and said, this must be my new home. But of course, I had no place to go. And so I went over to UCLA and said, I wanted to go to law school, but I couldn't find the women's bathroom, and so I concluded women don't go to law school in UCLA. So I went next door, and it was computer science when some people still thought that was a comic idea, and I got my PhD there in computer science. And in those days, they came out and they recruited, and that's how I got to NASA. And I work for but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because really what matters is that no matter how well I did and financially, I mean, I had a company there. We were the cutest software company down there, and we made more money than we could figure out how to spend until I met him. And he had this little, I don't know if I can talk about this, you'll have to tell me, salt shaker full of this white powder. And wherever he was going, I was going. He had a body for sin, and he had this beautiful, and I said yes. And so I went off with him, and I had 20 people working for me. Believe me, they did a better job when I wasn't there. And so we were going to fast lane, slow lane, Las Vegas, of course, where he taught me how to spend a lot of money because we never had figured out. But you remember when it started to get dark? Anybody remember that? And so, we want to talk about our fantasies, about how incredible it was and all the drugs I did. Most of the ones I did, I don't even know if they're doing them anymore. I mean, I never even had a good acid trip, but I knew a lot of, I don't know how much I can say about those words, but my drug of choice was rotten gut tequila. And, no, today sometimes I go to a Mexican restaurant and I see peach margaritas go by and I think, I never did that. And then I think, shut up, you never put anything in your tequila. I mean, what is that? But in any case, it was getting a little bit dark. You remember the paranoia? I was getting a little bit of the paranoia. I became a blind peeker, and part of it was that I had more than I should have had everywhere I was, and I know some of you know that story. And at one point, I got so nervous that I decided, I love the LA bars. You never leave there alone if you don't want to, but they didn't have those X-ray things in the TSA and whatever else they have that guarded you against yourself. And so I saw the sign. I'd been to Houston, so I was going to Miami, and I went down there. And I'm a bar girl. I'll drink in the bar. I'll drink anywhere, but I'm definitely a bar girl. I go into this bar, and I say to this guy, I'm in Miami. Do you got any Coke? And he says, do you know I could be a narc? I said, are you a narc? He said, no. I said, well, do you have any Coke? He said, and this was how I was getting paid by the week, and it was cash, and it was a lot of cash, and so I was in a lot of places, and I stayed down in Miami until until I finally realized I had to come back. And I had a house in Newport Beach, and I couldn't find it. I'm walking up and down, and I'm looking for it. You remember those times. Yeah, I know you remember that. We've had the same experiences. They just have different examples. And I'm down there, and I can't find it. And finally, I knock on this familiar door, and this guy comes out. He says, honey, where have you been? I said, do I live here? And he said, yeah, come on in. And they had this rotating kind of metal thing that was kind of like that. And he opened it. I saw the 357. I'm from Texas. I know what that is. But he also had this, I could smell the ether. And I could smell they were cooking something. And it was in there. And I thought, boy, this is not for me. Not for a girl like me. And so I'm racing back to my master bedroom, which was huge. And before too long, I've torn the thing up apart because I guess, did they teach you this in the 3rd grade, that the smells come under the door? And so I was out of my mind, I was out of my mind. The paramedics came. And in those days, they had straitjackets, and I was in my first straitjacket. But I'm really smart, so I said, this is going to be 72 hours. I can count. I know how this is going to work out. And sure enough, 72 hours, they let me out. 6 months go by, and now I've become a blind peeker. I've always had big houses. I had this big house, and I'm worried about who's out there, and are they coming? I know you guys know all about this, and are they coming? And one night I see the lights go on, and I think, here they are, and I'm looking out the window, and they were there. There were these police cars. And so I'm thinking, I'm not dressed for jail. I have this great walk-in closet, but it's got things in there that shouldn't be there. So I have to flush them, snore them, whatever it is. I got to get rid of those things that are in there. And I come up with this plan that I'm going to go down the stairs, and I'm going to leave my purse with my ID and the keys to the house, and then I'm going to lock myself out, and they won't know who I am. And so I get down there, and I'm out of the house, and I put my hands up because I'm ready to be arrested. Remember when you were ready to be arrested? And I'm ready to be arrested, and they're the guy next door, they're arresting him for stealing a car. Problem was I couldn't get back in the house. And so this is, one of the first really bad ideas I had. I had a lot of bad ideas, But I had some good ideas, too. You remember the good ideas we had? We knew that was a good idea. So I'm not going to get a DUI. I'm going to be different from you. And I'm not going to get a DUI. I'm going to hire cabs. But I'm having problems getting out of the bathroom by 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And one night, this guy comes by in a cab, and it's late. And I get in, and he says, it's really late. He says, I don't know a bar around here that's open for a lady. I said, I'm not a lady. Let's just go find a bar. And I don't know what kind of bars you hang out in, but my kind of bar, a little smell of whiskey and urine. Patio used to talk about this all the time. The glass was cracked. My kind of bar. I get up, they give me 6 shots of tequila so I can start drinking. My kind of bar, and it's midnight. I guess it's midnight. What time was it? Do you remember? I don't know what time it was. But I remember this guy coming up to me saying, "You want to dance?" Now I dance sober, much better than when I was, because I was dancing everywhere on chairs and all kinds of things. I said, okay. And so I'm dancing with him. I said, listen, I got to tell you something. I'm not a hooker, I'm a drunk. And he says, well, I'm not a trick, I'm your cab driver. I'm kind of reduced to these kinds of relationships. You were probably never reduced that far. But somehow in that week, I'm not a blackout drinker. I just don't remember exactly what happened. But within a few days, I'm back in a straitjacket again, and this time they're doing this 52-50 thing where they get to make the decision, not smart people like us. They get to make the decision about how long to stay, and they had these multiple doctors, and I don't remember how long I stayed, but I met Patty O there, and I remember she was an icon in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I still miss her so much. And she became the sunlight of my spirit. And she would talk to me, and she'd say, "You need to know something about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous." No, I don't. I'm really smart. Give me that book. I'll read that book. I'll tell you what that is. And then 6 months later, I'm back in that hospital. And this time, they say to me, "If you want to go to an AA meeting, we will unlock the door." I forgot to tell you the doors are locked. We'll unlock the door, and I knew there was a vending machine. I'd seen glimpses of that vending machine. I said, okay, so I come into this meeting. It's very much like this. Nice-looking people, nicely behaved, but it's a participation meeting, and I want to participate. And so they say, well, would anyone like to? Yes. And so I got up. I had published a book 2 or 3 years before, and so I really thought I was very profound. Do you remember when you were profound? So I wrote something down. I came up. I have no idea what I said, but it was profound. And you guys clapped for me, just like you're going to clap tonight. And I said, you know what? This is not so bad. It isn't so bad. I mean, these guys don't look that bad. And then some guy comes up behind me, and he babbles into the microphone, and you gave him the same applause. And I said, these guys have no, I'm not joining this group. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go back. But what happened is after I'd been there 75 days, and I knew it was 75 days, and I wrote checks that didn't bounce. Does anybody remember when that happened? And I wrote checks that didn't bounce. I could write big checks, and they said, we're going to discharge you from the hospital. I said, what? I can write you another check. No, your brother came, and he brought one of your cars, and we think it's time for you to go. And by then, I had 2 doctors. I paid both of them. I figured that was the fast track. You get 2, and then you get out sooner. I didn't really want to get out. I didn't want to go home. There were crack pipes there, and they weren't mine, and there was just a lot of stuff there that I didn't want to go home to. It was lonely. That house was haunted. I was going to have to go back there by myself, and I didn't want to go. And these 2 doctors, I said to them, they said, we're going to discharge you. What? Can I write you another check? They said, honey, you're a waste of time. And it was the worst thing anybody had ever said to me. And so I immediately did a big plead and grovel. I'm pretty good with a big plead and grovel. And got them to let me stay another 3 days. And then finally they say, you're packed up, you have to go. And it's Mission Hospital, so it's above Aliso State Beach. And I'm coming down, and Phil Collins is on the radio, and he's singing, I've been waiting for this moment all my life. And I had a moment. It might have been a spiritual experience. It might have been a halt. But suddenly I realized, my God. And I drove the car down, and I jumped out with all my clothes on. Nobody notices that in California. Jump in the water, and I'm screaming, I'm sober, I'm sober. I'm freezing to death, but I'm sober, I'm sober. And I get back in the car, and I realize I have to go to a meeting. So I'd never been to a meeting. There must be meetings. So I'm going up PC, I'm looking, and I get up, if you guys know where the Gucci meeting is. There were smokers in those days. I'm so sorry you don't get to smoke in this meeting. I think we should object to that. And so I always could identify, meetings by the smokers, and there they were. So I came up at a big meeting, 300 people, and I know you're really full. Sometimes they were really full. There wasn't a seat there anywhere. So I'm just walking out the door. This guy comes up and he says, I can get you a seat. And I'm thinking, he's the janitor. He knows where the seats are. And so I turn around, and he gets up on the podium, and it's Dr. Paul. Now, I don't know this. I don't know he's page 449 in the big book. In fact, I was a little upset that it's now on 417. And I have a girlfriend who has a license plate that says 449. I don't know what she's doing. But anyway, I heard him. He got up at the podium and he started talking, just like you don't understand anything I'm saying. I didn't understand anything he was saying. He was saying stuff like, I used to think the worst thing could be said about me was I'm an alcoholic. Today I know it's the best thing. I thought, where am I? But, I was so excited to have that seat. You give me a seat in a meeting, and it's a gift. I don't care how many empty seats there are. You give me a seat, you can hardly get me out of it. And I had that seat. And I remember that. I've always remembered that, 31 years later. I still remember that seat, and I got that seat. And I just have to tell you something in the middle of this. I spoke at Gucci a couple of weeks ago, thrilled out of my mind to be there. And there was a guy standing at the door looking like he was half in, half out. I said, is this your first meeting? He said, what about it? I said, well, I remember my first meeting, and my name is Honey. What's your name? He said, Troy. And I said, okay. So I got up at the podium, and I said, I wanted to talk to you about my first meeting and Dr. Paul, but I just met Troy, and it's his first meeting, and I know you guys are going to give him a seat. And, he became a celebrity that night. After the meeting, they didn't want to talk to me. They wanted to meet Troy. Where's Troy? Troy was here. What's he doing? If you're new here tonight, you're a celebrity. I just want you to know that, however you define new. We're so glad you're here. We're so glad you're here. And I got to connect that with something else I'm doing. Let's see. I'm going to the Newport Club, and I found out about the sponsor thing. And I'm real smart, and so I understand that what a sponsor is supposed to do is love you till you learn to love yourself. And so I go into that meeting, and I'm asking, would you sponsor? Well, I'm busy. Well, yeah, but Tiffany, could you sponsor? I'm already sponsoring too many people. Well, could you? And, I knew I had to have a sponsor. So I stood in that doorway at the end of the meeting. I said, no one gets out until I get a sponsor. I don't know how to do this thing, but this woman comes up to me. What a relief. But she gave me wrong direction. And she said, what you're going to do first from the meeting. So there were 67 chairs. There's still 67 chairs. They folded. If these chairs folded, you'd see a skill level you don't know about. I know how to fold chairs. And her first assignment was, you fold up these chairs. And I'm thinking, this has nothing to do with recovery. I'm very smart. I have the wrong sponsor. She doesn't even act like she loves me. But you know what? No one else asked me. And so I folded those chairs. I folded those chairs. And then a while later, about a month later, she says to me, okay, I want you to stand out in front of that, and I want you to put your hand out to people. I said, I don't even think they wash their hands. Why am I doing that? She says, because I told you you're doing that. I always did that. So I stood out there, and I did that for a while. And if you know the Newport Club, there's some stiff stairs up. And this old lady comes up, kind of old like I am now, and she comes up the stairs, and she puts her hand out to me, and she says, you put your hand out to me. And I came back. And my little Grinch of a heart, oh my God, I'm an Alcoholics Anonymous. And I immediately decided this was the key to everything. And I have to go to more meetings. By the way, I have 5 great meetings I want to recommend to you. I'm back on you don't care about this, but I'm back on the 4th step. I had, wasn't a very good year for me last year. My sponsor said, "Up, you're back on the 4th step. Now you're going to 7." I'm down to 5. I can't give up any of these 5 meetings. And later, it'll be worth it to you to find out which ones I go to. But anyway, I'm at the Newport Club, and I decided I need to find more meetings, and I'm going to get my hand out to you some more, because I figured if I connect with you, this is the connection. This is the answer. So I start going to all these meetings. I go to Hogue, and I invent this thing called the bathroom breaker. And what would happen is you'd be greeting as well as everything else you do. And I'd come up and I'd say, "I'm the bathroom breaker." I did that at the International Convention in San Antonio. And you'd say, "Thank you," and go to the bathroom, and I could get my hand out. That was it, right? I figured that was it. I was going to put my hand out there. And I did that for a long time. You know, it really helped me. It really helped me. I would like to tell you a few things completely out of order. Does anybody care? You don't care if I don't have a timeline, do you? You don't care. I will tell you, by the way, I had just gotten out of the hospital for a couple of weeks. They asked me to speak at the Newport Club, and I stood in front of this group, and I said, "I don't have all my words, so will you guys help me?" I have only been out of the hospital a couple of weeks, and they did this autopsy, and they said, "Biopsy." I said, "Thank you, you're helping me. Thank you." And then later on, I couldn't remember what I was talking about, so I would say, "What was I talking about?" And then you would tell me, and it would work out. This Christmas, my brother died. He died on Christmas Day. He was the spirit of my life. We were the only, we were a family. He had 36 years of sobriety. They'd carried him across the street to come into the church, and he said, "I don't know where I am. I don't know what this chip is, but my sister's here. I'm going to be okay." This is how we get filled with love. Whoever knows about that, you know. And so I need a meeting. I need a meeting. I've got to have a meeting. Where do you go for a meeting on Christmas Day? So I call, and the Newport Club says, "We have a meeting," and there are these guys, look younger than you are, in this circle, and they're talking about what a shitty, can I say that? What a shitty Christmas they're having. They didn't get presents under the tree. The families didn't come and get them. They felt like they've been mistreated enough, and it shouldn't be like this. And when it gets to me, I said, "Do you know something? Do you know how grateful I am that you're here?" I had no place to go. I had no place to go, and my brother died, and I love my brother so much, and I can't be alone. I don't know where. I'm just so glad you're here. And the meeting's over, and these guys come up to me, and they're hugging me, and they're saying, "Honey, we're going to help you." "Okay, we're going to help you. How are you doing?" And this was Christmas. We are now in the first week of June. I still see those guys in the 5:30 meeting, and they'll come out, honey, how are you doing?" Do you know how much that helps? Yeah, I don't know if you've experienced that yet. I don't know if you've reached out and been in enough pain to see us come and help you. And that's been my experience over and over and over again. My first year sober, it's everything. If you haven't done your first year sober, it's everything. Liquor stores are not going to close. I know a few dealers who are never going out of business. It's everything. You get that first year, and what happens, I remember standing up and to the podium, and if you can believe it, I stopped talking. And I looked around, and I said, "My God, I've arrived. I've arrived." And I knew I didn't have to run anymore. I knew I belonged. I knew I was where I needed to be. Don't get 2 or 3 years, because then what happens is they start holding you responsible for what you do. But anyway, the first year is an absolute gift, and I've never forgotten. I've just never forgotten it. When I was 10 years sober, I thought I was somebody important, and I went to the Orange County. The Orange County Convention, and as I was coming in, I could hear them. They were getting ready for the night and playing music, and they were singing, and they sang "Happy Birthday" to me as I went in. And I thought, "Look at me!" And they said, "I got sober." They said, "You didn't get sober. We got you sober." It took all of us, and I had to take a look at that. You know, I really had to take a look at that. When I was when I was 20 years sober, my sponsor died, and I wanted Patty O to sponsor me, but I didn't tell her. And so I went around and I'd say to you, Patty O's my sponsor, and you'd go, wow, what a program you must have. Wow, you know, you're taller, you're prettier, you're tittier, whatever it is, you know. You've got Patty O as a sponsor. But I didn't tell her. So finally I went down to Legacy one night. I said, can I talk to you? I need to tell you something. I've been telling a lot of people that you're my sponsor. She said, I know that, honey. I've been sponsoring you from behind. And, you know, when she came in the room, I got better. But she talked a lot to newcomers. I mean, she didn't really talk to me that much. I'd come in and I'd stand and wait with my 20 years sober, and she'd give me commitments. I'm 20 years sober. I'm a big girl. People should be looking at me. She wanted me to pass the basket in the meeting. I didn't say anything, but you know what I thought. And she said, never mind. And she takes the basket and she's pulling her oxygen tank behind her, and she's passing the basket. Oh my God. Just give me anything, okay? I'll do anything. I'm so sorry. You know, this guilt, remorse, and shame. I think she was almost 40 years sober at the time. And, but she gave me another horrible commitment. You'd think after I apologized like that, she'd give me something good. But she didn't. The worst commitment she ever gave me was that back row. I was telling a friend of ours back here about that. I had the back row. You know, and here it's okay, but not at Legacy. The back row is way back there. They're all on phones, and they're up and down like Jack in the Box, and or jackrabbits. And I go back there and I say, "Excuse me, but I was wondering if you would." And he'd say, "Get away from me." Okay. You know, that was, and then I'd come back and I'd say to Tiffany, "Could you?" And she'd say, "Leave me alone." And then I'd come back another week and I'd say, "Could you just?" And he said, "Fuck you." And I said, "I hate my commitment." And he said, "This is your commitment, honey. We're going to behave better." And they did. I've told that story before. Any place I tell that story, the back row is, they don't call it death row anymore. They don't do that. I have a death row. I thought 30 was a lot better than 31. If you're going to pick a year to be sober, make it 30, not 31. I know a lot of you are past that, but it wasn't a good year for me. And my sponsor said, "That's it. I already told you this. You're back on the first step, and you're going to." She got mad at me this week because I told everybody, you know, my sponsor has an ice pick. She said, "I heard you said I had an ice pick." I said, "I did. I'm bragging about that." And I said, "Can I call you my kick-ass sponsor then?" And she said, I said, "Because you don't let me get away with anything." But I'm down to 5 meetings. I just wanted to, this would be 6, I guess. What is it, Saturday night? Saturday night, I'm usually at the Canyon Club. And Sunday night is my first and foremost home group. They'll actually call me or say nasty things to me if I'm not there. And I'm the bell ringer. I've waited 30. I am the bell ringer at 7. You don't care about that. But they once had me in charge of the temperature. I said, "What is that?" It's on the wall. They said, "Well, you're going to keep people warm." How? "Well, adjust it." I mean, this was, anyway, I'm the bell ringer. It's a big deal. But what else do I want to tell you about that? I guess I should talk to you about what my life is like now. Is it time for me to do that?
11 minutes left.
11 minutes, I can tell you. I can tell you a lot about what my life is. I've always had stuff and things, so I don't have a lot of stories about bankruptcy. I don't have any stories about knives and maybe a couple of guns, but I don't really, I don't have those stories. And I have the jail stories. I've been to jail. Don't go to jail in Mexico. Don't go to jail in Mexico. I spoke in Chula Vista last year. It was the first time in 30 years I'd seen the border. And as I'm driving up, I'm looking, and I came in, and there's this big meeting. I said, "I just saw the border." And I thought, well, these people must be all coming from the border. Very strong leadership and sponsorship there. And I'm all excited. I hadn't seen the border in 30 years. They said to me, "If you leave this country and never come back," okay. So I never did. But I've done that. I've been arrested a few times, and I didn't like that. They always they used to arrest me on Thursday night when they should have done it on Saturday night. But you know what I'm talking about. And they get the wrong nights. One night I got arrested. I got one more minute before now, right? One night I get arrested. It's New Year's Eve. I got a brand new Corvette, and he has rejected me. I've got a brand new Corvette. I want to take him home, and he's rejected me. And of course, they've been passing around something called freebase. I don't know what that was, but anyway, I'm all in tears, and they pull me over, and they say, you know, get out, because we're going to do whatever. I said, I've got on brand new stiletto heels, and I'm not going to get out there. They said, well, take them off. You don't care about this. I said, I got on $10 nylons in 1990. That was a pretty big deal. And I said, I want to go where the boys are going. They said, we don't have any accommodations for women in Orange County Jail. I'm going where the boys are going. I'm going to go with them. So they put me in this room with 1,000-watt bulbs. I didn't look good with 1,000-watt bulbs even then, you know. And 3 or 4 hours later, they let me go. So many people in so many places have saved my life over and over again. I don't know how long it takes us to be conscious of that. But one more time, somebody stopped us. One more time. Thank God we're here. What would we do if they hadn't done it, you know? Anyway, I got arrested a couple other times, but I'd rather tell you about now. Well, I'll tell you a hero story. You want me to sound like a hero? I can sound like a hero. Here's my hero story. I got arrested last year. I was speaking at it might have been the year before. I don't have my time. I got arrested. I was coming back. I was speaking at it's in Santa Monica. It's the largest gay meeting, and they gave me such applause. I just said, how do I get to come back? Would you guys invite me again? You know, this is wonderful. And I'm down in Costa Mesa, and I turn right on Victoria onto Harbor, and there he is. There's the cop. And they pull me over, and then, you know, and then there's another cop. Any of you know about this? And then there's another cop. Then I'm sitting there for a while. I turn the lights on in my car because I don't want them to know. I don't want them to make me get out, you know. I'm a shoe girl. Aren't these nice shoes? Yeah, put these shoes on for you. And I don't want to take my shoes off. And now the supervisor's coming, the druggy buggy comes, you know, that whole deal. And he says, where are you going? And I wanted to say, I'm in you know how we want to do this. I'm sober. I said, I'm just going to that light right up there, and I'm almost home. And he says, well, I'm going to write you a ticket, and you turned right on Victoria onto Harbor. You didn't stop, so I'm going to write you this ticket. And Monday morning, I want you to take it down to the police department, where I've spent a lot of time with my clients. And he said, they're going to tear it up. We want to thank you for what you do in this community. And that's my hero story. My other story about now is I've been working with women for 25 years because I had this big house, and I don't know which husband, it was my third husband, my fourth husband, but I remember him saying there are too many panties and bras in this house, which I thought was a strange thing for him to say. And so we went down to Yellowstone Street in Costa Mesa, and my sponsor came, and my 60 sober sister, I have so many sober sisters, Patty O came, and you know, they showed us what to do, and I've had the honor of working with women, but I'll tell you, I've had some thoughts about that lately. You know, my mother died of the last drink, and she was in the hospital silently screaming. They had to take a trach in her throat, and I was drunk on the couch, saying whatever. And, you know, I had to look back at it. You know, my mother was a child of God. I forgot that. She never had the chances that I had to be sitting here. She'd never seen an AA meeting. I don't think she'd ever seen a sober person. We were from KKK country. And I thought, you know, almost as a kind of, I don't know if it's an amends. I don't know if I do it because I just love the women, but it gives me a chance one more time to help somebody that's very sick. And we have very sick girls. And my mother was a sick girl. And so that's part of my now story. I have the biggest deal now for me is I live in a 70-year-old house where they made Vans shoes, And I live in that house. I've been restoring it for a long time, and the big event is Sunday. I have Sunday dinner. And I bought a table for 12 this year because I could have 12 people. And sometimes we have 14 or 15. And then we have Sunday dinner. And everybody comes and cooks and does. It's not even potluck. It's what can I bring? What are you missing? You know. And we have Sunday dinner. It's at 5 o'clock, and then we go to Legacy on Sunday night. It's really a lure. I get people there so they can go to my home group with me, and that's a big deal. Do I have time to tell them one more story?
That's 5 more minutes.
Oh, okay. I want to tell you a story because I've got the time. Don't later tell your next speaker what a bad job I did. Keep them on the timeline. I went to the International in San Antonio because I'd heard about the little yellow hats that they had, and I was only 3 or 4 years sober, and so we drove to El Paso, went to San Antonio, and I immediately volunteered, and they said, no, you had to volunteer 6 months ago. Well, so what could I do? So Don Henley and the Eagles were playing. There were 4,000 people there. So what I did is I barged into their, it was the group, and I said, look, I'm your bathroom breaker. And I got them to go to the bathroom, and I still couldn't get my little yellow hat. And I was trying to barge in. It was the cutest hat. And I was trying to barge in everywhere. And finally, it's the big stadium. You know, we're expecting 70, 80,000 people. I got in the shortest line. I'm an alcoholic. I only had 3 or 4 years sober. And the line goes in, and it turns out to be security, and these guys are putting on uniforms. So I back out of that, and I'm standing in that stadium, and it's me looking out. My people are coming. And I'm thinking, my God, my people are coming. And then Keith Drummond, I shouldn't say his name, this guy named Keith comes out, and he says, can I say fuck in this meeting? I've already done that. So, what the fuck are you doing? I said, I'm a volunteer. I just don't have my little yellow hat. He said, well, you stand right over there, and that's full. And when people come up, you tell them, this is full. You have to go somewhere else, because he said, I've got all those seats. I said, I could do that. So I'm standing there, and people would come up, and you'd say, I'm sorry, we're full. Can you go? I was in 44, it was my number. Could you go down to 45? And finally, after doing that for a while, these 5 people came up and they said, we're from London, we just got here, and we don't have any seats, can you help us? So I walked down those steps and I said, 5 people are here from London who don't have a seat, can you help? 20 people got up. My people, our people, this is Alcoholics Anonymous. 20 people got up. And they gave them seats. And that night, I saw something that I just don't quite know how to explain, but they were coming with the flags. If you haven't been to the International, I'm not going to Vancouver. Too many of my friends are felons, so I'm not going. But what happens is they walk across, and they got the flags, and they're walking across with the flags. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And as they're coming across, there is Iran, and there's Iraq, and there's Israel. And you see these guys go by, and they stop and they hug one another. And I say to myself, where in the world, at any time, are we ever going to see this again? It was a magical moment. It was a spiritual. My sponsor used to talk a lot about the spiritual experience, and she would say, it's in the book. It's in the book. The spiritual life is not a theory. You have to live it. Honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. And she'd say, and you have to do the right thing. And it's a program of progress and not perfection. And then she would say, one of her most famous lines, I'm sure you've heard it over and over again, you come in and you sit all the way down. And I do that. I don't ever want to leave Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't want to. I have made a home here with a family I never had in my life. People who will help me no matter what I'm doing. People who have helped me. I've just given you a couple of examples. But this year, people have come out of the woodwork for me. I have not liked being 31 at all. And I'm not going to tell you the details of it. but I'm in Heartbreak Hotel and couldn't get in the hallway. And I've had people come and help me and stay with me. They won't leave my house. When I got out of the hospital, they just kept coming. I only have 4 bedrooms, and I made them into 3, and they were sleeping. People just come. They just come. My people, you're my people. It's us. We're here. Right now. Right now. Right here. It's us. This is my family. Thanks for letting me share.